They say if you dream a thing more than once, it's sure to come true. Hi everyone, and welcome to Notorious Crafts. I recreated the cake from Sleeping Beauty that Fauna made for Aurora's 16th birthday. For the cake layers, I am using white polymer clay from the brand Sculpey. I conditioned the clay in its packaging to prevent any dust or any other things from my fingers that could get picked up in white clay. I always end up with some dust or some little cloth fibers in my white clay, so this helped prevent me getting any kind of dust into my white clay. I couldn't find my roller to roll out the clay, so I used this clear stamping block to flatten out the clay. I used this metal circle clay cutter to cut out some of the cake layers. I'm going to need 10 layers for my very tall cake. I have never made a 10-layer cake before, both a real cake or a clay cake. I made the layers in different sizes, some thinner, some taller, since I was referencing the movie a lot and a lot of the layers were not consistent. I smoothed out some of the clay that had a little bit of uneven texture to it using my finger. I'm working on top of a piece of foil so that I wouldn't have to peel off a 10-layer clay cake and end up ruining any of the layers when I am ready to bake. Before I attach each layer, I am scoring and adding some texture to the top piece as well as the bottom piece, and this will help them stick together. In between the layers, I'm also adding some clay adhesive, and this will really help make sure that my layers do not fall apart and will adhere both of the layers together when I bake it. I'm going to continue this same process until all 10 layers are on top of each other. I am also referencing the movie to make sure I'm getting the same shape that Fauna ended up making. I also want to start making the broom before I bake the clay, and I'm using some of these bamboo skewers to make the broom. I used a pair of wire cutters to trim the bamboo skewer to make it a lot shorter, and then I painted it with some brown acrylic paint. I used some glossy Mod Podge to seal the paint. After the broomstick dried, I created an indent on the second to top layer of the cake, and that is where the broomstick will rest. And now the clay cake is ready to be placed in the oven so that it can bake and harden. While the cake is baking, I'm going to make the rest of the broomstick. I'm going to use some crafting twine. I'm unraveling it even more so you can see some of the fibers. I'm gluing the unraveled string directly onto the glue stick and then pushing the fibers into it, and then just continuing to add some more of the string onto it with glue. I'm going to keep continuing to do that same process over and over again until I have a good size broom. To finish the top of the broom and give it a nice finish, I'm adding some brown sewing thread on the very top, and I'm just applying the same glue all around. This thread will also keep some of the broom fibers together. I took apart some more of the threads to make the broom look even bigger, and then trimmed the bottom to make all the threads even. My cake is done baking and it turned out great. There are no cracks. I was worried because it's such a big piece. So I'm testing out the broom, but it seems too long, so I'm going to trim the broom to make it a little bit shorter. I cut off a piece from the top and the shorter broom looks a lot better now. Now I'm going to make the blue frosting that's going to go on the different layers of cake, so I'm using some liquid polymer clay. This blue ends up being very dark, so I'm going to mix it with some white liquid polymer clay. I'm using these precision bottles to help with the details of frosting the cake, and I'm just going to keep shaking it to mix up the liquid polymer clay. I'm doing all the decorating on top of my baking sheet so I don't have to worry about creating a mess or accidentally messing it up while trying to place it on a baking sheet with the liquid polymer clay. I also started a few layers below the top so that I could hold the top while decorating the rest of the cake. I really love decorating the cake. I think this was my favorite part, creating some of the frosting drips all over the edges. Here are all the layers, and now I'm going to place this in the oven to bake so that the liquid clay can harden. And after this, I'm going to start decorating the very top. The entire top is going to be completely blue. The entire edge of the cake will also be entirely blue, just like in the movie, and I'm going to add some yellow decorations on it. Once I'm done adding the blue icing, I'll pop it in the oven so that it can bake and harden. I'm using my clay extruder to get some thin strings of yellow clay. I'm using clay adhesive to attach the yellow string on the very top layer of cake. I'm using a toothpick to apply the clay adhesive to the very top layer of the cake. And then I'm attaching my yellow clay string directly onto where the clay adhesive is, and just following that and using it as a template. Next, I'm going to make some tiny stars using this silicone mold, and I'm going to use yellow liquid polymer clay. I used a scrap piece of cardboard to scrape off the extra yellow clay that's on top. And here are all the little tiny stars after I bake them. They're so cute. I'm amazed at how small they are. I attached them using some of the clay adhesive as well as some crafting tweezers. I'm using the clay extruder to create some pink candles. Needed really thin wire, and I got the idea to use wire that was inside of this canvas ribbon since it's really thin. So I just cut off some pieces using pliers, and then I'm going to trim this down to even smaller pieces. I cut the pink clay into even smaller pieces, and I was using the grid lines as a guide so that each candle will be the same exact size. I stuck the wire into each piece of clay, and that's why it was really important for this wire to be really thin. If the candle got out of shape after trying to put the wire in, I just rolled it against the glass mat to even it out. And once I was done, I baked all of the candles with the wire inside. Next, I'm going to make the fire on top of the candles using some resin, so I'm also using some orange and yellow pigment dyes. I'm filling up 2 silicone mixing cups with some clear resin. Then I added 1 drop of each pigment and mixed it together. I'm dipping the tip of the wire first into the orange resin and swirling it around to get a nice even layer, and then placing it under an LED light to harden. Then I placed it into the yellow resin, and this way it created orange in the center and yellow towards the edges of the candle. Continued that same process for the rest of the candles, and it did take a while to get all of the candles made, but I'm really happy with the result of them. In the movie, the candles have a yellow base, so I'm just cutting up small pieces of yellow clay. I rolled each of the small clay pieces into a ball and then pushed the candle into them and then attached it using some clay adhesive. I also used clay adhesive to attach the candle to the top of the cake. And then I continued to add on the rest of the candles onto the cake. This cake took a really long time to make, as well as the making of this video, so I would really appreciate it if you guys would give this video a like. And now I'll place this in the oven to bake one final time so that the candles can properly adhere to the top of the cake. And once upon a dream, a beautiful lopsided cake was created from clay. And can't forget the broom, because how else are you supposed to keep up a 10-layer cake? I really love how this recreation of Sleeping Beauty's cake turned out. I think I got it pretty close to how it looks in the movie. I've been wanting to make this cake for the longest time. Let me know how you think it turned out down below in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.